Chapter 14, City on the Neva. And have such changes been taking place in St. Petersburg too, as well as in Moscow? I asked Anastasia. Events happened somewhat differently in the city on the Neva, she replied. Footnote pronounced Neva, the river that flows through the city of St. Petersburg into the Gulf of Bosnia and the Baltic Sea. The city was founded on the swampy delta of the Neva River by Emperor Peter the Great in 1703 as Russia's new capital and window on the west. There's a really long footnote, and I just don't care. Sorry. By the book. Events happened somewhat differently in the city on the Neva, she replied. There it was the children who, even before the adults, felt the need of doing something themselves about creating a different kind of future. The children took it upon themselves to start changing the city, without waiting for a decree from the authorities. Wow. Children again. How did it all start? At the corner where the Nevsky Prospect crosses the Fontanka embankment, some workers had dug a trench. Footnote, Nevsky Prospect, Nevsky Avenue, the principal thoroughfare of St. Petersburg, stretching more than 4 kilometers from the Admiralty to the Alexander Nevsky Monastery. Footnote, Fontanka, one of the several channels of the Neva River flowing through the delta on which the city of St. Petersburg is built. Embankments on both sides give it more the appearance of a canal. The city boasts about 50 canals and 100 islands. An 11-year-old boy accidentally fell into it and injured his leg. While he was recuperating, he spent a long time sitting at the window of his flat at number 25, Fontanka Embankment. But his apartment windows looked not out onto the river, but into an interior courtyard. The view included a shabby brick wall and the rusty spots covering the roof of the house it was attached to. One day the boy asked his father, "Papa, isn't our country supposed to be the best in the world?" "Of course," the father replied. "It is one of the best in the world." "Why is it the best?" "What do you mean, why? It's got a lot of different kinds of monuments and museums, and the architecture in the city center is world famous." "But we live in the city center too, and all we can see from our windows is a shabby wall and the rusty roof of the building next door." "A wall? Well, yes, we didn't do so well with the view." "Are we the only ones?" "Maybe a few others, but anyway." The boy took a snapshot of the view from his apartment windows, and when he was able to go to school again, he showed the photo to his chums. Then all the children in his class took snapshots from their windows and compared the photos. The overall picture was not very pretty. The boy and his chums went to see the editors of one of the local papers and asked the same question he had asked his father. Why is our city supposed to be more beautiful than others? They tried explaining to him about Alexander's Column and the Hermitage. They talked about Kazan Cathedral and the legendary Nevsky Prospect. There are footnotes for all of those: Alexander's Column, the Hermitage, and Kazan Cathedral. But I don't want to read them. Sorry. "What makes the Nevsky so hot?" the boy inquired. "I think it looks like a stone trench with flaking edges." They tried explaining to him about the architectural merits of the thoroughfare, about the sculptural moldings on the building facades, about how the city, at the moment, didn't have enough funds to restore all the houses at once, but soon there would be money available, and then everybody would see how beautiful the Nevsky really was. "But what's so beautiful about a stone trench, even if the facades are spruced up? Besides, it'll only get shabby again before long, and they'll have to refill the holes and fix up the parts that have fallen down." The boy and his chums went around to various editorial offices, showing them their now considerable collection of photos and asking the same questions over and over again. At first, the journalists were irritated at his persistence. On one occasion, a reporter with a youth newspaper told him, "Oh, it's you again? Now you're dragging your henchmen along with you? You've got more and more of them, it seems, all the time. You may not like the city, the view from your windows, but can't you do at least something about it yourselves? That's enough criticizing going on without you kids adding your 2 cents worth. Go back to your homes and stop interfering with our work." This admonition was overheard by a veteran journalist who, after seeing the group of children make their way out of the newspaper offices, spoke thoughtfully to the young reporter. "You know, their audacity reminds me of a particular fairy tale." "A fairy tale? Which one?" the reporter asked. "The emperor has no clothes. Remember those words in the story?" After that, the boys stopped bothering the editors with questions and showing the huge collection of pictures they carried around in a backpack. The school year ended, and come September, another began. It didn't take long for the news to spread through the newspaper offices. "The boy and his chums are back again," the veteran journalist exclaimed to his colleagues at the Journalists' Club for the umpteenth time. "He's back. Yes, indeed. Just think. He finally managed to get a hearing. And he wasn't alone. They all sat quietly waiting together in the reception room for about 3 hours. I agreed to see them. I warned them to talk quickly, as I had set aside only 2 minutes to hear what they had to say. They came in and spread out a huge sheet of drafting papers across my desk. I looked at their masterpiece and was dumbfounded. I kept looking, not being able to take my eyes away or even say a word. 2 minutes must have gone by, for I had heard the boy say to everyone, "It's time for us to leave. We've outstayed our welcome." Footnote, we've outstayed our welcome. The original Russian phrase can also be interpreted to mean, the age you live in here is no longer the age we live in. I'm sorry. It's funny. I'm going to use that one. What's that? I called after them just as they were on their way out the door. He turned around, and I felt the look of another age descend upon me. Yes, indeed. There's still a lot that we have to think through and make sense of. Yes, indeed. Well, what did he say? Asked a colleague. Others, too, became restless and asked, "Don't keep us in suspense. What did he say? Did he say he was coming back?" Whereupon the veteran editor replied. He turned around and answered my question like this. "That's our Nevsky you've got in front of you. For now, it's only on paper, but eventually the whole city will be this way." And then the door closed. For the umpteenth time, the journalists bent over to examine the design and marveled at its amazing beauty. The design showed the houses along Nevsky Prospect, no longer one right smack up against the other, forming a continuous stone wall. Some of the old buildings were still there, but every other building had been taken down. In place of the raised, R-A-Z-E-D, houses, there were now marvelous green and fragrant oases. Birds were shown nesting in many birches, pines, and cedars, and it seemed as though one could hear their song just from looking at the drawing. The people sitting on benches beneath shady trees were surrounded by beautiful flower beds, as well as raspberry and currant bushes. These green oases jutted out a little into the street, and the Nevsky no longer looked like a stone trench, but a splendid, living green alley, A-L-L-E with an apostrophe E. The building facades had a multitude of mirrors built into them. The thousands of splashes of sunlight reflected in the mirrors played with the passers-by, caressed the petals of the flowers, and played in the streams of the little fountains set up in each green oasis. People were shown drinking water along with splashes of sunlight, and smiling. "Anastasia," I asked, "did the boy ever show up again?" "What boy?" "You know, the one who kept pestering the editors with his question." "The boy was gone for good. He became a great architect. Together with his like-minded chums, he created splendid cities of the future, cities and villages in which happy people began to live. But his first marvelous creation was the city he designed on the Neva. Anastasia, in what year will Russia's marvelous future appear? You can determine the year for yourself, Vladimir. What do you mean for myself? Is time subject to man's will? What man does in his time is definitely subject to his will. Everything created by a dream already exists in space. The dreams of many human souls, your readers, will turn the divine dream into material reality. What you have seen may come about in 300 years, or it could come about right now, this instant. Right this instant. But you can't build a house in an instant, and your garden won't grow up in even a year. But if you, right where you are living at the moment, even if it is just a tiny flat, plant a seed in a little clay pot of earth, from which may grow a shoot of a family tree. This tree will eventually grow to maturity in your future family domain. You yourself are talking about what will be. That's not the same thing as right now. In other words, a dream cannot materialize itself in a single instant. What do you mean it cannot? After all, that material seed you plant, that is precisely the beginning of the dream's coming true. The shoot interacts with the whole universe. It materializes your dream, and you will be enfolded by splendid, bright energies. You will stand before the Father as an embodiment of his dream. Interesting indeed. That means we should get started right away. Of course. Only where do I find the right words to get people to understand? The words will be found if you can be sincere and true to yourself in front of people. I don't know how, but I shall act. Your dream has sparked something in my soul, Anastasia, and I very much want to make the future that I have seen come true.